Winter is coming. It's fall, and it's cold. I'm freezing my duty off. Colder than a well digger's behind. So, you know what a snowman's a favorite Mexican food is? A burrito. So, enough with the jokes today. Today, I'm going back to what this channel was formed for. We are going back to public safety. And today we'll start a series on winter safety. So stay tuned. Here we go. The Doctor of Disaster is a wholly owned subsidiary of Warnick and Associates Incorporated. Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Mark Warnick, the Doctor of Disaster. I am considered a subject matter expert in public health, emergency management, and public safety by not one, but two different universities. Now, before we get started, I'd like to remind you to like, subscribe, and comment. We are right now at the dismal number of 98 subscribers, and I'd like to make 100 subscribers as soon as possible. Maybe we can grow from there, who knows? Anyway, let's talk about the weather. It's turning off cold, and we're starting to see freezing nights, at least in Illinois where I live. So, we want to talk about ways and things that you can do for your own safety. So, without any further ado, let's start on this. I want to start today with your car. Yeah. So, winter's coming. And if you don't do anything with your car, it's probably going to fail you in the middle of winter. So, what do we need to do? Well, we need to get our car serviced. We need to go to the mechanic shop and see if it needs a tune up, new spark plugs, new wires. We also need to check for recalls because recalls can come at any time. We also need to check the battery. You know, if we don't check that battery, what could happen is we could go out one morning or even be somewhere far, far away and the battery dies. Yeah, it doesn't want to start. So we need to check that battery. We need to make sure that it's good and solid. Your mechanic can do that for you, unless you have a battery tester. We also need to make sure that the lights are good. You know, lights are so important in winter weather. That's the way that people see you coming from the other direction when it's really bad out. We also need to have the cooling system checked. You want to make sure the cooling system is in proper working order. If it needs flushed, you know, if you look down in there and it's rusty and everything, probably needs flushed. You also want to look around for any leaks or anything like that. And you want to check whether there's a proper amount of coolant there. Now, whatever your coldest temperature is what that coolant should be set below, not at, below. Why? Well, it's very simple. If your coolant isn't right, what's going to happen in the very cold weather is that engine block can freeze up. And normally the freeze plugs will pop out, which is an expense you don't want. But there's also the potential that it'll crack your block. So your engine would be useless after that. And I don't know about you, but for me, I don't want to spend that extra money. Now, let's talk about your windshield washers. Need to make sure that you've got good blades on it. There's plenty of places where you can go and they'll replace your blades with winter blades for your windshield washers. Also, you want to make sure that you don't have just water in there or summer washer fluid. That is very bad and it can cause damage to your windshield washer system. You want to also make sure that your defroster works. Does the fan blow? Does it blow warm when it's been heated up? All these are really important things to consider. You also want to make sure that your tires are in good shape. People are going, oh no, not my tires. I don't want to buy new tires. Well, guess what? If you need them and you don't buy them, you may be going for a spin and not the kind you want. Spinning down the road. So that's why you need to check your tires. You also want to check, and most people won't tell you this, but I will, your floor mats. Oh, yeah, your floor mats. Why do we want to check our floor mats? We want to make sure that they fit right, that they don't get underneath the accelerator, that they don't jam the accelerator. Okay, that can happen. Another thing that can happen is it can, when you need power to maybe get by something so you don't get hit, it can stop you from pushing that pedal down further if it's not right. So we need to check the floor mats and we need to stock your vehicle. Oh, stock my vehicle? Yeah. What I'm talking about with stocking your vehicle is you want a snow shovel, maybe a broom, a scraper. You might want to put some sand or some kitty litter in there. You especially if you've got an SUV or a truck, you can get those sandbags for in the back to give it weight. Those also work if you need to in an emergency. Cut them open and put them under your wheels. You might want to put in jumper cables, flashlights, warning devices, road flares or triangles. These are all inexpensive things that you can have that might save you from getting hurt. You also want to stock it with some blankets, enough for one for every person. What happens if you get stuck and you're low on fuel? What happens if you get caught in a blizzard and they can't get to you for 16 or 18 hours? How are you going to stay warm? You don't want to freeze to death. So what I do is I go to Walmart or Target or Rural King or any of these stores, and they sell those blankets that come in a roll. And they're just small things, but they work. And because they're in a roll, I can put them in a compartment on the back of my Jeep. There's little compartments there, and we can put them in there and never have to worry. If we ever get stuck, we can get the blankets, not even have to get out of the Jeep, and put it over us to keep us warm. You also want to make sure that you have a cell phone with you at all times you're in the car, a charger, and I like to call this a jump kit, but you should have a bag in there that has all the necessities that will help you make it. You should have like an extra phone charger, water, food, protein bars. If you need medicines to survive, you might want to keep some extras in there. If not, maybe you want to carry a little pouch that has some medicines in it in case you do get stuck alongside the road. And then you also want to plan your travel and your route. Huh? Yes. So if I'm going to Rural King and then I'm going to go over to Walmart or Burger King, I'm going to tell my wife, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go over to Rural King and Burger King or Walmart, whatever. And this is the route I'm taking, or I'm taking the normal route. That way, if, let's say, I slide off the road and I'm not seen, my wife can tell the people looking for me, hey, he went this way and that way. And if you follow that road, he's there somewhere. When I was in public safety, we had someone that slid off into what we called a holler. And that person wasn't seen for 4 days and they ended up dying. And by planning your travel and your route and sharing it with someone, that reduces the risk that something like that could happen to you. You may survive the crash, but freeze to death. And yes, even in places that rarely get snow, Texas, they do get snow, but not as often as central or northern Illinois or Michigan or Wisconsin or any place like that. Even those places need these things. The main thing is to stay alert. You need to make sure that your gas tank never gets below a half a tank. Why? Well, what happens if you get stuck or you slide off the road or, whatever, and it's the middle of the night on a deserted road? You never know. You could have an accident, go off into a road that you've never been down before, or the road is blocked ahead, so you try and get around and you get stuck. Yeah. So, you know, keep a full tank. If you're running a hybrid or an electric car, before you leave, make sure it's fully charged, not partially. If road conditions are hazardous, you should try to avoid driving unless you absolutely have to. If you absolutely have to, then you need to take your time, plan ahead. If you're taking a longer trip and you run into issues, what you need to do is plan enough time to stop and stretch, to walk around, to rejuvenate yourself. Because let's face it, a lot of people, when they drive long distances, they get tired. Their reflexes slow down and they aren't as good as they normally would be. Now, driving in winter conditions is another concern. When we talk about driving in winter conditions, we don't want to see someone driving wide open in the snow. How many times have you been on the highway and someone puts that hammer down and passes you? You're running 60 and it's icy and slick out. That is dangerous. Truckers are especially bad about that. And, I've been one time when Cleo and I were coming back from Oklahoma, we got caught in an ice storm and we had a truck in front of us that hit the brakes and the trailer started going sideways. Well, I started easing down on the brakes and I sped up because the ice was so slick. He recovered it and I recovered it, but had we been driving faster, we probably wouldn't have had time to react. And he probably would have flipped his truck. The other thing we need to remember when we're driving in winter conditions is to increase the distance between you and the car ahead of you. Yes, we've gotten into these habits of, getting closer, tailgating, or, you know, oh, 3 car lengths is enough. In winter conditions, this is not good. You need to at least double the distance between you and that other car. Another thing to consider is know if your vehicle has anti lock brakes. Because if your vehicle has anti lock brakes, you can actually cause more problems if you don't know how to operate them. Anti lock brakes, you don't pump those. You just step on them and let the anti locks work. Now, if they aren't working, then you need to pump the brakes. But, when I hit my anti lock brakes on my Jeep, it sounds like, why does it sound like that? It's simple because it breaks and lets off, breaks and lets off, breaks and lets off. That should help prevent you from skidding. Now, if you don't have anti-lock brakes, then what you need to do is to gently pump your brakes. Don't lock them up. If you lock them up, you're going to slide. Another thing to do is if you start to slide, you need to let off your gas. Now, here's an important thing to remember when you're driving down the road, bridges, overpasses, um, sometimes even the culverts can freeze before everything else. Now, a habit I've gotten into is when I'm driving over some place that may freeze better, I just lift my foot off the accelerator. Might take me a second or two more to get to where I'm going, but it's safety. There is substantially less of a chance of you having an accident, of sliding and spinning if you just lift. Now, we also need to remember that it's important on what you should do around snowplows. Number one, don't crowd a snowplow. Don't try and travel beside it or anything like that. Either stay behind it, which is the best thing, or get past it. And if you go past it, don't just kind of dilly dally and stay on the side of it. In fact, when we're driving in the snow, it's best just to pass only when you have to and make sure that you don't pace the car or run just a hair faster so it takes 20 miles or 5 miles, I'm exaggerating, to pass them. It's important to remember that the road directly behind is snowplow, 400 foot behind it, especially if they're laying down salt or calcium, is much safer to drive on than passing the plow. You need to remember that those snowplow drivers typically can't see you because they are only watching their side mirrors. They don't have a rear view mirror and they have no way of looking out the back. So your best bet, 300 feet behind it and just follow it. Now, it's also important to remember that snowplows can throw what snowplow operators call rooster tail. And basically what that is a cloud of snow that comes over or off to the side. And that reduces visibility. It can cause accidents. It can also cause slickness. And if it's a heavy enough snow, it can knock you sideways, which you then spin out. And that's where a lot of snowplow accidents occur. What do we do if we get caught out in a winter emergency? Let's say we're driving and we get caught in a blizzard. Number one rule: stay with your vehicle. Why? Well, if you get out traipsing down the road, there's no guarantee that you will be safe. I can't tell you how many times people have walked away from their cars and they found them dead in the snow later. At the very least, it's going to offer you protection from the weather. The other thing it's going to offer you, it offers you protection from cars or trucks that are sliding or have an accident themselves. You also want to put bright markers on windows or antennas so that people can see you. Now, me personally, I went out and bought a little yellow flag that says help on it that I put on the antenna, and that's what I'll use if I need it. Now, one thing to be careful about: you've seen this orange tape that hunters use and surveyors use. Do not put that on your antenna. Why? When I was working in public safety, one of the things we did when we checked a car was we put that orange, yellow, or green tape on the antenna so that we knew that car was checked. So the next guy didn't take a chance of getting run over while trying to check that car. We also need to remember that we need to be very careful if we are stuck in our car not to get carbon monoxide poisoning. You should crack the windows if you have it running. Run it only as long as you need to. If you need to run it constantly, you need to make sure that the exhaust is clear so it's coming out, not building up into your car. And you need to crack the windows so any carbon monoxide or anything like that gets out. You should really run it sporadically rather than run it constantly. Then again, you may need to worry if you didn't have your car checked out that the battery may not be good enough to turn it off and on. You see what I'm saying? That's why we check our cars. Now, finally, we need to talk about safety first. When you go out in winter weather, it is critical that you wear a seatbelt. Why? Well, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people that probably would have survived, but they were ejected out the window when a car rolled over, or their head hit the windshield. This is very difficult to survive. In most instances, they broke their back or neck. Now, we also need to worry about our children. Children under the age of 13 should ride in the back seat at all times, not only during winter weather. We need to make sure that car seats and booster seats are approved by NHTSA and that they fit snugly into it. Yes, sometimes kids don't like it, but guess what? It's for their safety. We don't want to lose that precious cargo. While that is wonderful, it can also interfere with the safety devices in the booster seats or the car seats. Another important thing: never leave your child unattended in or around a car. Never. Make sure that that child is safe at all times. And make a mental note, maybe even put a marker on your dashboard to remind you if a child's in the car when you're going to work. How many children have died from heat or freezing because parents forgot they were in the back seat? Another thing to remember is make sure that when you leave your vehicle, you lock it and take your keys. But I want to warm up my car. Great. Sit in it while it warms up. If you leave your keys in the car, a small child may want to act like mommy and daddy and start the car, and next thing you know, they've gone down the road backwards and ran into several things and gotten hurt. So make sure you keep your keys with you. Don't leave them in the car. And if kids aren't a factor and you want to warm your car before you leave work, make sure you have 2 sets of keys to lock that door so some yahoo can't get in there and steal your vehicle. Now, the final thing I want to talk about today for winter safety is you need to reduce your risky behavior when you're driving. Well, I don't do risky behavior. Not me. No risky behavior. Okay. Do you answer texts? Do you read text messages? Do you send text messages? Do you answer your phone? Do you talk on the phone? That's risky behavior. Do you eat while driving down the road or drink that cup of coffee? Risky behavior. Now, another risky behavior is speeding, using drugs or alcohol while driving, or just not paying attention, gawking around. Yeah, look at that. Oh, and next thing you know, you're in a wreck. Even if you've had one drink, or in the states that allow it, smoked a couple of tokes off of a joint, marijuana stick, it can impede your judgment and your motor skills and your memory. So, quite frankly, we need to be cautious with all this. Anyway, like I said, I'm doing a series on all of the winter preparedness stuff. And today I wanted to start with vehicles because that's probably where you're going to have most of the problem because it's a moving part. It's not like your house. Now, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And also, remember, I'm trying to reach that 100 subscriber mark. And I'd like to get even higher than that. In fact, I'd like to start getting paid for this. You know, YouTube, if I get so many subscribers, and I've got plenty of viewing time, but if I get so many subscribers, then they'll start paying me for doing these. And I'm just a poor boy. So, like, subscribe, comment, and help me reach that 100 mark. Until next time, you saw Cleo back there. She forgot I was recording. Until next time, be safe. The Doctor of Disaster is a wholly owned subsidiary of Warnick & Associates Incorporated.